I had parents, but I was raised by my grandparents, Stephen Mopope and Jeanette Berry, his wife. My grandma, your grandma's house, whatever grandma needs, you have to do. I remember being a child, and, as a child, you're not very coordinated. So your job is to pick up all the beads that grandma has dropped. Nothing's wasted, so all of these beads are put together, picked up off the floor, and then grandma starts you out edging. Grandma was a teacher of everything, philosophy, religion, manners. She gave us turkey bones, the wishbone.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so you would beat it, and then where it would split into two, you were supposed to bead where it split in two. It taught you how to increase and decrease, the design, and so that everything comes out balanced and proportioned. And I remember my fingers hurt, my neck hurt, my back hurt, and I remember coming to her and I know it was ugly, it was full of mistakes. I was a beginner, and I remember showing it to her. What do you think, Grandma? And she'd look at it, that's nice, but she said, you made a mistake here, you made a mistake here. She said, she said, I think you could do better. And then she would pull it apart. And I remember, I just wanted to cry. And then she'd lay it down, and you always covered your beadwork. It was your choice. Are you going to come back the next day and start over? Or are you going to be like your sisters and walk out the door and go play tag? My grandmother, she has a little sampler,
Mm-hmm.
and it has all of her beadwork designs. They're recorded. And she had a good situation where, like my grandfather, my grandmother could be working on something, and my grandpa would take that idea and he would work it into his painting.
Oh, neat.
And then it also worked the other way. My grandfather would take a design, and he would make something for my grandmother, but not very long ago, you could look at someone's work and you could say, oh yeah, that's Anna Conad's work. Oh, that's Keentottle's work. That's Paukeigope's work. That's Jeanette Berry's work. But now it's really hard. That that artistic style is dying out. First off, it's hard work.
Mm-hmm.
It's expensive to get all of the supplies together. But we do give cradle boards when we're able to. We like to give them to young people, and it helps to encourage them. Very few people have the patience to sit for hours and hours. You can never get paid by the hour because you have too much time invested in something. And generally what pushes you is really and truly the love. In 1989 and 90, I received the National Heritage Fellowship Award from the National Endowment for the Arts. And at that time, I was the youngest person to ever receive that award. Generally, it's given to elders. And that kind of award, I've always said, it should have gone to my grandparents. I never suffered the way that my grandparents suffered. When I talk about suffering, I'm talking about like going back to when they were here, all of this was forbidden. So for my grandfather to knowingly go out and record and paint, it really caused a lot of problems because this was that nasty forbidden culture that needed to be buried. And it was so brave of him. At the end of his life, I asked him, I said, Grandpa, I said, what is your most important award that you've ever received? He said, I've met presidents, I've met royalty. He said, I've met movie stars. He said, but my greatest award was being asked to work on the battle teepee. My whole life I've been fascinated by this traditional Kiowa life. I knew about this teepee, and I met Schiffer Silberman, and she asked me to do miniature teepees. Yes, I don't have a problem with that, but in our culture, I said, men are the only ones who can paint these kind of figures on there. I said, would that be a problem to you? And you see, Kiowa culture, it's very divided. You know, out here, this part, it belongs just to men, and over here, this part just belongs to women. But there was no one alive who could correct me. But you have that conscience. Mm-hmm. You know what's right, you know what's wrong. So that was why I got Seth, my son, and Gabriel to work on these figures. And I knew that that battle teepee had many scenes instead of the just 4 or 5 that were on the original miniature. So I'm really proud of this because, you know, when I did this, I chose to put my son's name, I chose to put my name, I chose to put my great-grandfather Goulet. I put his name on there. He was a Spaniard by birth. He was captured after his family were making their way to Santa Fe to start a trading post. So they were caught by the Kiowas and the Comanches. And the Kiowa, the man that was the head of the raid, was going to let the leader go. He was fighting so bravely. He would fight, and then he would reach behind him. Anyway, so they went to see what it was. They lifted that cloth up, and there was a little boy under there. The little boy wasn't afraid of them. But they took him, and he was raised as a Kiowa. And it's ironic that this child that grew up into a Kiowa man, a Kiowa warrior, fought and killed a Spanish officer and took a cape. To this day, the Kiowa Black Leggings Society, Tonkonga, they still honor that deed. The man that they're honoring doesn't have a drop of Kiowa blood in him. He's a captive, a Spanish captive. But that was the deed that was painted here. Mm-hmm. Then this Paukeigope, that's my name. And the Kiowas were fighting with Utes. And there was one man who came out and he challenged the Kiowas. And there's water that's moving. And they were talking about, the Kiowa men were so impressed with this man because he was finely dressed. And he fought so bravely. He was mortally wounded, but he was singing and he was hollering. And it just gives me chills to talk about it. But where this man was killed, you know, there's water moving. That's where my name comes from. It's a war name, a battle name, Paukeigope. You know, but as you go through life, you know, you meet some extraordinary people, and they have such a profound effect on your life. There was a purpose. You know, they were all fighting, even in their own gentle, dignified way. You know, they were fighting for what was important to them. It was their culture, their Indian culture. This is the way my grandma explained. She said, hold your hand out like that. She said, now, she said, make a fist. She said, now, she said, you walk for 75 years and you try to keep everything that's in that hand so that it's the same amount as when you can open your fist up. While you're on this earth, you're a container. You meet this person and they pass this love and this information on to you, and then you hold it and you walk for those 75 years until you meet the person who's going to take your place. In our family, the glue that holds us together is the respect for tradition and culture.